do a bit of a straight shoot questions at a few to the local authority. Many towns in Ireland or villages have no sewerage.
Well, responsibility for sewage rests with Ishgare and where.
Well, no. Without Irish water infrastructure, where there's no Irish water infrastructure, where many towns are in control of its local authorities with no sewerage.
I don't have that information to hand, Deputy, but I can revert to you.
Right around the whole country, because it's in hundreds, and it's gone into streams. The Irish water, many towns at the moment needs. Ends in year programme going forward needs upgrade and new systems.
I don't have that information to hand, Deputy. I can come back with the detail in terms of the overall numbers that need investment.
And if you don't know, how can you know how to fix a problem? Of obviously, the dog on the street knows that there's sewage going into rivers. Yeah. That's when the reports come out, there's phosphorus, right? There's a model used. So the farmer at the moment, because you don't know and the local authorities don't know, there's a model done. I'm talking about phosphorus now, I'm not talking about nitrates. At the moment, the farmer has a red mark over them in Leitrim, where there was one farmer in Derogation, and he's out of it now. In the west of Ireland, where you'd never see a cow, dairy cow in parts of it. And how much of a contribution have you made to that? And you still don't know, both bodies don't know. And second of all, am I correct in saying at the moment with Irish Water that you're actually scaling back because funding is tightened? And I would hear it from the people looking after water and sewerage around the country.
Deputy, in terms of your first question, there and impacts. Again, we know from the third cycle of river basin management planning where the greatest impacts associated with wastewater are, and that is very much to the forefront of our investment planning process. So those locations, as we mentioned earlier, where there's networks or wastewater treatment plants that are identified as a significant pressure, they are feeding into the investment process, which right now we would be completing the current one and into the next.
Will that investment process be over by 2025? Will it be done? Will all this work be done by 2025?
We work within a regular...
No. I'm asking a straight question. Will it be done by 2025? Because the farmers of Ireland on the derogation are up on all the results on water quality in relation to derogation for going forward. So will that work be done? The answer is no. Would I be fair in saying that?
Where Ishgare are identified as impacting on 4% of water bodies, we will be progressing with work in those areas. I cannot answer you, Deputy, in terms of whether all that work will be completed.
Like you start the job tomorrow, you want it done by 2025. Like, there's no point in for anyone that knows anything about the work.
But Deputy, I can come back to you with a response on that query. But
please do. To the department, there's 4 criteria used now, and I'm not a scientist, but there's 4 criteria used, am I right, when you're assessing for the nitrates, or what we use when we're looking at water quality. There's 4 criteria used. Is that correct?
That one. Yeah. Well, sorry. In relation to. You're referring to what was required under the derogation decision. Yeah, there was 4 criteria used for that.
And who came up with that?
That was the Commission that came up for that.
Commission?
Yeah, and that's separate to what we would normally, that the EPA would normally report on. That was kind of a separate set of 4 criteria that was developed specifically for that derogation decision. Okay. So we're not tied to that in terms of reporting, the annual reporting that goes to Europe on the derogation, or it doesn't mean that we're tied to it going forward either in terms of, you know, it's up to...
and sorry now my ignorance on this, I just want to know it. There's 4 criteria used. If you go down on one of the criteria, you're gone. Is that correct?
In terms of the derogation.
If you were doing your leaving cert one time and you got 3 right questions and you got 1 wrong, you passed it, right? You got a B or whatever you got. Whereas in this, if one of them goes down, it's gone.
In terms of derogation decision, yes.
And why is that if you say that there's a different reporting mechanism yearly other than that? Did what the Commission has laid down, and ye have huge experience at this, is it basically trying to win the 100 metres when you wouldn't run 5 yards? Is it something that's unachievable with what the Commission has laid down to achieve? That's what I'm trying to get to grips on here. When you have said there that on a yearly reporting, it's a different system.
Yeah, well, the derogation decision, the criteria that was set out in it, was the first time we've been asked, like Ireland has been asked, the state has been asked.
Is it very high threshold?
Well, yeah, it would be considered. Probably it wouldn't have been, if we were allowed to set out the criteria, it wouldn't have been the kind of evidence-based approach. It would be seen as a precautionary approach as opposed to a scientific risk-based approach.
So is it scientific people in Europe that's basically telling us what they want to get over the line? And if you were setting it out, in fairness to your department, that some of those things wouldn't be in it. Would that be fair to say with the standard that they're trying to move you to?
I think in terms of the EPA, when that report in June was submitted by the Department of Agriculture to the Commission, the EPA, in the EPA doing the report, the red map basically was answered the questions, the 4 criteria that the Commission asked for. But in that report as well, on I think it was page 21 of that report, there was a targeted measures map that the EPA put forward. And essentially that was what I refer to as that risk-based, evidence-based approach. And going forward, if the Commission were willing to listen and negotiate on that, that would be the criteria that would be put forward going forward. And I think in terms of...
Sorry for interrupting you. You were saying if they were willing to listen. Like, what's the hope of that? Or are they just basically trying to... What I don't want to be doing is codding farmers.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. If you're going to be... If the guillotine is coming today or tomorrow, but there's no point if we have someone in the Commission that is setting out criteria to ye, in fairness, you're getting the raft of it from Europe, and saying, well, we'll give you this if you're able to achieve that. And what I'm trying to establish is what they're trying to achieve, especially with soil type, as you've said earlier, Doctor, in relation to the permeability of be it rock or be it heavy soil, free draining, that are we on a heightened to nothing with what they have laid out and what we're trying to achieve in the time frame we're on? That's what I'm trying to establish. Like, we're going round in circles at the moment, but this criteria has been laid down by Brussels. Who laid down the criteria, say, on the phosphate in the line of all of the country? Who laid down the model and the criteria?
I suppose I'll start with question, reply to, will the Commission listen? I suppose it's been very clear when Commissioner Sikavenikius came to visit, and also then Commission officials came back after his visit. And I suppose the criteria shifted in terms of they made it very clear that the criteria for going forward and getting a derogation, in the 6th NAP, under the 6th NAP, would be that Ireland has to demonstrate that there is no deterioration in the water bodies that are achieving their environmental objective at the moment, so that's at least good status, or that where the water bodies are not achieving at least good status, there must be an improvement demonstrated. So I think there's a move away from the 4 criteria you're talking about to the language that's coming from the Commission now in terms of we need to demonstrate those 2 criteria.
When will those decisions be made as to what the criteria is going to be for the next review?
Well, the decision, in terms of the negotiation, DAFM will start leading out in that negotiation probably at the end of this year, 2024, and that negotiation period will extend really into the end of 2025 then, so it'll be throughout that period that becomes clear.
Right, and are you okay? Yeah. What I'm trying to understand here on the, say, nitrates is affecting one part of the country and then it's phosphorus in the rest. Who set up the model? Because the modelling done of when, even in the nitrates, there's a modelling done that when I go sampling the water, I'm going to ring the Department of Agriculture, how many cows and how many cattle and how many things is in that area, right? How many Irish water or whatever is in the area. And they're using a model.
Yeah.
You're using a model. Putting up that model. And how accurate is that model? Because when you go testing water, like, my fear is, especially on the, I know several places around the country, and look, it's through lack of, it wasn't done down through the years. Didn't Irish Water's fault on their own because they're not long on the go. But there was lack of funding to councils down through the years. And the infrastructure wasn't put in place for sewer. Simple as that. And there's the world, like, I know several towns that the sewerage is going. But it's the farmer here that has the red map over them. It's in the town. It's the farmer at the enterprise they're at that has it over it. And I would like to know who's designing these models. It's a model, like everything is a model nowadays. We push how many cattle, how many Irish water, how many people is in an area, and then we do this great joke will tell us what's the problem and who's responsible.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that works that way, to be quite frank about it. Okay. Because if there's raw sewage going into a place, like I know areas, I know where there's the most pristine river in Ireland near me. Right? Islands River is the name, hear that man there, Councillor Dicklinger. I know there's the most pristine in Ireland. It has a red mark right round it now because of the nitrates. Well, like, there's something wrong if you have, it's coming miles. But why is that?
Well, if I start by answering your question around the model, that might... so in terms of, I suppose model is a loose term that's used. So it's more of a process. So under the River Basin Management Plan, there's a process called the Characterisation Risk Assessment. So that involves the EP undertake that, and it involves using 140 data sets, over 140 data sets from all the people here in the different organisations, plus 30, 40 other organisations that are involved in water management.
Just correct me if I'm wrong on this now, in fairness. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong on this, because we at DPA, there's like 286 tested regularly. There's 1,680 off the top of my head now, and I'm open to correction on this. 1,680 tested once a year, and the rest is every few years. Am I right in that? And can you tell me in the criteria, and down near where Tim Lombard is from, because myself and Jackie and Tim Lombard and Paul Daly were in Brussels talking to the Commissioner, and the fear I have in this is that these guys, they don't want to listen, because they basically told us that it was, you know, other countries might go against us, even though, in fairness, the Department of Agriculture said a bit different. But what I am saying is, if they come to a place, a river, once a year and it's bad, or if it's good the next year, and then they're testing something every 15 minutes, like they are down in Cork in places. What criteria do you use? Like, is it hard luck the day that you went out and it was either bad, or is it good luck that it was good? Like, what sort of a system have we?
Yeah, well, in terms of, you know, the monitoring, we've different kind of, nationally there's different kind of frequencies of monitoring, but some of the monitoring points are monitored, we'll say every month. Some are monitored once every 3 months, and then the ecological monitoring, like, it would be taken once every 3 years around the country. But, you know, if there's a problem, basically it's a risk, it's that characterisation risk assessment approach involving all the monitoring data, involving having all the information, that's all pulled together, then the EPA assesses where the water bodies are at risk of impact from agriculture. Then that is put in into, you know, maps, and the Law Pro are then basically tasked in those priority areas for action of going out, boots on the ground, getting out into the river and seeing exactly what that problem. That involves more monitoring. Then, if there is a problem, then that's where the referral goes out to ASAP.
Would it be agreed by the department and by all parties? And I have one last question for inland fisheries. Would it be agreed by the department that you could get a farmer in derogation, or a swath of them in an area, and they could be doing everything to the best of their ability, doing everything right, enough of storage, and I actually agree with you on that, storage is awful important. But you could get a person down the road 2 miles that's not in derogation, and if some person went in that didn't know how to spread slurry right or do it the right way, can actually do harm to all that area. Would that be fair to say? And it's the derogation farmer that pays the price.
Is that in on
No,
ourselves?
that's for you, and then I'll have a last question for inland fisheries.
Yeah, well, in terms of if, you know, if that's the case, then that's when Law Pro and that's when ASAP come in. You know, if there was, you know, well, obviously you'd have your inspection. If there's some non-compliance there, the inspection programme comes in and catches that. If it's not a non-compliance or an enforcement issue, then you have the advisory side of it, where Law Pro and ASAP and now the Farming for Waters EIP will come in to help address issues there. So you'd come at it both ways depending on what the issue was and what was causing the issue. What you're saying there, potentially non-compliance if it was spreading outside the closed period, that's obviously a compliance issue.
I'm not even talking about the closed period. I'm just saying that if there was a farmer that didn't do something by the letter, like, you know, you have to keep your distances from stream as contractors, you have to do everything right. And what I'm saying is there could be a host of farmers up there on derogation doing everything 100% right.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, but the game in town at the moment is the derogation. And because maybe someone that's not on derogation done something maybe stupid,
Yeah.
That could affect the whole catchment area. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely, and that's where, you know, we need, again, it's back to the opening statement. You know, if you point out there's one person doing something stupid there or something that's not compliant. So it's about it's not just on the derogation farmers, it's about the sector taking ownership of this, all holistically together and working together with one another to achieve the outcomes. And the reality of the situation is, in some of our catchments, you know, we need to see significant nitrogen load reductions here. And, you know, there could be cases that in some of the catchments that everybody could be doing everything right and could be fully compliant. And it's really then about getting the advisory services into those areas to support, and the likes of the Farming for Water EIP, to actually target and improve those nitrogen surpluses, bring those surpluses down, improve the nitrogen use efficiencies on those farms to reduce those losses, those nitrogen losses into the, we'll say, our estuarine environment. So it's working together across the whole of sector is key.
The last question for inland fisheries. Say I saw fish kills in Clare, I'd have been monitored where there's fish kills around the country. The biggest amounts of fish killed is 20 farmers that have done it. That'd be fair to say, in the monitoring I have done of different fish kills around the country. Who ended up paying the price at the end of it? Who were you bringing to court here and there, when you look at the numbers, right, in the last year?
Well, we can provide you with the statistics, Deputy. But
have you them?
We do actually have the statistics for the last number of years here, yeah. So the total reported fish kills between from 19 up to 23 were 118, caused by agricultural practice 21 in that 5-year period, caused by industrial operations it is 12, caused by municipal works 15, and other causes, disease and natural causes, and issues due to climate change and low water conditions are actually 62.
Can you explain that last one to me, the 62 one?
So we would have, I suppose, the issue is that due to, I'll let Brian, I suppose, their biodiversity and climate action director speak to it. He's probably more eloquent than I am.
Thank you, Deputy. What we're finding is, I suppose, as time goes on, we're seeing a new layer on top of the standard fish kill type scenarios. If we have deteriorated water quality, on top of that, if we have very high temperatures or sustained low flows in rivers, we're finding that we're having more fish kills. So in the last number of years, we've had to put large numbers of fish kills down to this cause, which is it's a catch-all more or less, but it relates to poor condition within the rivers in general, with climate in combination with other factors. And it's like there's a tipping point there, that we're closer to that tipping point now on the basis of several factors, including water quality in some areas, and things like disease, which can happen as a result of warmer temperatures.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Sorry, Anthony, yeah.
Sorry, Carrier, possible just to expand maybe on answer some of the questions raised by Deputy Fitzmaurice there. Route Tennessee would be able to expand on our catchments programme, if there's time permits.
I suppose just to maybe answer some of the questions that Deputy had in relation to, I suppose, building on the information that we have from the likes of the EPA models and the data that's there. I suppose LawPro was established specifically to answer the questions that you're asking, about trying to understand of what's causing those water quality declines in particular catchments, whether it's agriculture, whether it's wastewater treatment, trying to, I suppose, disentangle from the multitude of different things that we're seeing. So I suppose our starting point in the catchment always is the water quality data that's available from the EPA monitoring programme and from those models that are there. We then take that information and build on it, and we go out and do our own assessments. We have a team of catchment scientists, and we're working in 190 areas that have been established across the country. So we go out into those catchments and we do our own investigations, start doing our own ecological assessments, looking at the biology, but also taking some of those nutrient levels as well, looking at nutrients, flow conditions, as well as oxygen, and walking the different sections of the river. So we're starting, I suppose, looking, from the monitoring point where we have information, and looking upstream, looking at all of the tributaries that are discharging into the main channel, looking as well above and below the likes of the towns, wastewater treatment plants, the collection systems, as well as industry, and then in smaller rivers as well, the likes of septic tanks and things like that. So I suppose that allows us then to pinpoint with, I suppose, a greater level of confidence as to what those sources of problems might be, whether it's phosphorus or nitrogen or ammonia or sediment or anything else. So, so there's a range of techniques that we would use to do that. But as was mentioned already, it's primarily boots on the ground, a presence in the catchment, and revisiting that catchment over different conditions, over different seasons as well, to build a clearer picture. And then I suppose once we do identify what those issues are, and what's causing those water quality declines and the activities that are related to it, we would, I suppose, refer that to the various, I suppose, government agencies that are responsible for regulating. So if it's a wastewater treatment plant or an industry, it could be the likes of the Environmental Protection Agency or local authorities, and where, I suppose, it's agricultural issues, we will work with the Agricultural Sustainability Support and Advice Programme, and they then will work with farmers in those catchments to, I suppose, address the particular issues that are causing the problems, whether it's phosphorus losses or nitrates. So I suppose we're specifically there to answer some of those questions.